Okay, so for the next section, the left hand is a bit more interesting here. I'm going to play it with the metronome really slowly, just so you get an idea of the rhythm. So we're going to start on an F, then we're going to go F, E, F up to A, and then A, G sharp, A up to C. So what's happening there is I'm playing a crotchet, and then it's tied over to a semiquaver, and then semiquavers F, E, F up to A. Again, that's tied to the first semiquaver of the following beat, A, G sharp, A up to C for 2 beats, and down to the lower C for 2 beats. So one more time with the metronome. So those entries are syncopated. So the next 2 bars are really similar rhythm-wise, different notes. So G, G, F sharp, G, C sharp. Now I'm on that C sharp with a finger 4, and I'm going to change that to a finger 3 so that I can play a B sharp, which is the same as C. It's called an enharmonic, but so that you can see the shape of the notes on the music, I guess. We use a B sharp instead of a C natural, because otherwise it would just be 3 C's in a row, which would get really confusing. So C sharp, B sharp, C sharp, E, D. Let's do that with the metronome. So G, C sharp, B sharp, E, D. So let's go back to the beginning and play all of that with the metronome. I forgot to mention as well in the first bar, once you got up to the A, you then switch to finger 2 before going down to the G sharp. So starting on F, switch to finger 2, and then G. C sharp, switch to finger 3, and B sharp. Okay, so for the next bit, we've got octaves again. So we're going to play G sharp for a beat and a half, then a quaver on an A as a staccato, up to B flat for a beat and a half again, it's a dotted crotchet, down to A again as a staccato quaver, and then back to G sharp. So we've got this sort of chromatic idea. So G sharp. So that G sharp is only a quaver because then we've got this chromatic movement. We're not going to use standard chromatic fingering though, just because this idea is repeated. So we start fortissimo and diminuendo. So you've got a bit of a stretch there, it's not too comfortable, but it's only a semiquaver long. So D with finger 4 down to A with finger 5. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's over before you know it, it's fine. So one more time. And then from there we're going up the octave. So we've got that A, G sharp, A like we had before, and we're going to repeat that 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, landing on D. So from the G sharp, let's do that with a metronome. So if you also noticed, as I was playing that pattern, I got louder towards the middle of the bar and quieter again towards the end. I don't know I'm doing that with my hand, but never mind. Okay, so the right hand here, we've got a nice pattern here. We're going A, C, A to the higher octave A, and this entry is also syncopated, so the left hand plays the strong beat. Okay, so keep that in mind as I play this. So A, C, A, A, and then C, F, C, C. Okay, so here we've got a first inversion F major arpeggio, which means we're starting on the A rather than the F. And as I play this, as I go up and down, my wrist kind of helps me pivot around the notes, because otherwise it's not the most comfortable stretch, especially if you've got small hands like me. And then the same again, but this time it's a second inversion C major arpeggio, so instead of starting on the C, we start on the G. So those together. And then here we go up to the B flat, and we've got a similar idea to the beginning, but starting on B flat. So B flat, D, B flat, up to the higher B flat, and then A, E, A to the higher A. And then here, we're going to go A, C sharp, A up to G. Now that G is a minim, so we're going to keep it held as we carry on with the bar. And then A, D, A, and then that minim moves to an F. A, D, A. So one more time. So A, C sharp, A, G, A, D, A, F. So let's do that with a metronome from the start. Okay, so the next bit, again, like the first bar, we're going to go D, F, D up to the higher D, so it's just different notes, but following the same pattern. And then we do the same notes again, just an octave higher. And then we've got an arpeggiated chord. Now this is a second inversion, B minor with a lowered fifth. So we've got F, B, D and F. So if you've got the sheet music, you'll notice there's a little vertical squiggly line, which means you just play the notes spread out rather than a solid chord. So from that arpeggiated chord, we're going to come down 2 octaves from that lowest F, so we're just below middle C, and we're going to play those chromatic notes in parallel with our left hand ones, and we're going to start nice and loud and diminuendo through the bar. Keep that D tied as we play a D minor chord, and then we're going to play another D minor chord, but this time it's the first inversion, so we've got an F at the bottom, then an A, and then a D on top. And then we've got an arpeggiated chord. This is a G minor sus6, so we're adding the 6th note, which would be an E, but we're taking it to the bottom, so we're going to play an E, a G, a B flat and a D, like I said, arpeggiated. And then we're going to keep the E and the G tied as we come down to A and C sharp. So this is an A major 7 chord, second inversion, as we've got the E at the bottom. And then we go back to D minor second inversion. But here it's good to practice carrying on into the next section just because it's really quick. And then you've got the same idea as you've got right at the very beginning of the piece. Let's do all of that with a metronome. So this is from the beginning of this section. So before we put this hands together, I think it's best to probably tackle the most difficult bits first, which will be from this arpeggiated chord. And then really quickly we've got to bring our right hand down 2 octaves, and we need to practice getting these chromatic notes really nice and clear when we're playing our hands together, so we need lots of clarity. So start slowly. So just practice landing on that D minor chord. The more you practice it, the faster you can play it. So I suggest maybe dotting the rhythm. So you can make sure all our fingers are really, really, really nice and together, so we don't get that's really exaggerated, but that's the sort of thing that we want to avoid. So the next bar, let's get that hands together. So your left hand's doing the same thing, that A, A, G sharp, A, A, G sharp, A, and so on. And then that D minor, arpeggiated chord, and slide down, and land on D minor. So. And so on. So let's do all of that hands together with a metronome. And remember to always practice with dynamics too, just to get yourself into a good habit. about half the speed we're going to eventually aim for, so when you want to speed it up, just make sure you know all the notes really, really, really well, and then only try to speed it up gradually.